What if I told you that behind the glittering towers of Manhattan, behind the landmark buildings that define the New York skyline, a quiet revolution is taking place? A new generation of Chinese families is not merely investing in the American dream. They are quite literally purchasing it, reshaping it, and building dynasties that span from the ancient traditions of the East to the towering ambitions of the West. In 2025, New York City remains the undisputed capital of global wealth, home to more billionaires than any other city on the planet. And among those who have chosen this metropolis as the foundation for their empires, Chinese families have emerged as some of the most strategic, most ambitious, and most successful players in the game. This is not simply a story about money moving across borders. This is a deep exploration of how these remarkable families have navigated political upheaval, cultural transformation, and economic uncertainty to build multi-billion-dollar fortunes in the city that never sleeps. From a former factory worker who now owns stakes in some of Manhattan's most iconic office towers, to a fashion tycoon whose quiet investments transformed American brands into global phenomena, these are the stories that reveal the new architecture of wealth in the 21st century. We will count down the top 10, examining the brilliant strategies, the pivotal decisions, and the family bonds that transformed ambitious immigrants into titans of industry. You will discover how one couple wrote the playbook for moving a fortune out of communist China and into the heart of American real estate. You will learn how a refugee from the Tiananmen Square protests became one of the most respected investors in the world, managing billions from his New York perch. And you will understand why the smartest money in China has increasingly found its way to the canyons of Wall Street and the penthouses of Park Avenue. These families have mastered the art of building wealth across two of the world's largest economies, leveraging their unique understanding of both cultures to identify opportunities invisible to others. But this is more than a story about financial acumen. It is a story about resilience, about vision, and about the profound transformation of family legacies across generations and continents. Stay until the very end, because the family at number 1 has constructed something truly extraordinary, a blueprint for how to protect a fortune, grow an empire, and establish a lasting presence in the most competitive real estate market on Earth. We begin our countdown at number 10 with a story that reads like a cautionary tale written across the New York skyline. Chen Guoqing built his empire alongside his brother Qin Feng, transforming Hainan Airlines from a regional carrier into one of China's largest private aviation conglomerates. At its height, H&A Group controlled assets spanning airlines, hotels, and real estate across the globe, and Chen Guoqing served as vice chairman and CEO of Pacific American Corporation, the company's powerful American subsidiary. When he set his sights on New York, he did not simply dip his toe into the market. He dove headfirst into the most exclusive address in Manhattan. In February 2015, Chen Guoqing closed on a full-floor condominium on the 86th floor of 157, the Christian de Port-Saint-Parc design tower that had come to define Billionaires Row along 57th Street. The price tag was $47.4 million, working out to roughly $7,600 per square foot for 6,200 square feet of pure Manhattan luxury. But here is where the story takes an extraordinary turn. Just 2 months later, Chen returned for more, purchasing another entire floor on the 88th level for $47.3 million. He had negotiated a 10% discount from the original asking price of $52.5 million, demonstrating that even when spending nearly $100 million on Manhattan real estate, a shrewd businessman never pays full price. These two acquisitions made Chen Guoqing one of the most prominent Chinese buyers in a building that had become synonymous with foreign wealth flooding into New York. The 157 penthouse had already set records, selling for over $100 million to an anonymous buyer. Chinese investors had become some of the most enthusiastic purchasers in the development, seeking to park their wealth in the stability of American real estate. For Chen, these apartments represented something beyond mere investment. They were trophies of a remarkable ascent from provincial China to the commanding heights of global capitalism. Yet the very forces that propelled Chen to such heights would ultimately bring his empire crashing down. HNA Group had expanded too aggressively, accumulating massive debts through a stunning spree of global acquisitions that included stakes in Deutsche Bank and Hilton hotels. When the Chinese government began cracking down on debt-laden companies making ambitious overseas plays, HNA found itself in the crosshairs. By 2021, the company had declared bankruptcy and was carved into 4 separate components. Chen Feng was arrested on unspecified charges, and the Manhattan condominiums that once symbolized triumph became assets to be liquidated. HNA later sold a unit on the 67th floor at 157 for $17.2 million, a staggering 43% loss from the $30 million they had paid. The Qin family's dramatic arc serves as a stark reminder that even the most spectacular fortunes can evaporate when leverage meets political reality. But if Chen Guoqing represents the perils of overreach, our number 9 entry demonstrates an entirely different approach to wealth. Liu Yiqian began his working life not in corner offices or family businesses, but behind the wheel of a Shanghai taxi. Through shrewd investments in the Chinese stock market during the 1990s, he transformed himself into one of his nation's most successful investors and, eventually, one of its most celebrated art collectors. His appetite for masterpieces became legendary in November 2015 when he purchased Amedeo Modigliani's reclining nude at Christie's, New York for $170.4 million. The detail that captured the world's attention was his method of payment. He charged the entire amount to his American Express card, reportedly earning enough points for free flights for the rest of his life. When Liu turned his attention to New York real estate, he displayed the same patience that had served him in the art market. Rather than rushing to acquire trophy properties at peak prices, he waited. In 2016, he purchased a 3-bedroom unit on the 62nd floor of 157 for $23.5 million, securing a remarkable 25% discount from the original asking price of $31.7 million. The apartment offered panoramic views of Central Park and glimpses of the Statue of Liberty, and Liu reportedly intended to use it himself when visiting New York for the major auction house events that had become central to his collecting life. Today, Liu Yiqian's net worth exceeds $1 billion, and his Long Museum in Shanghai stands as one of China's largest private museums, housing a collection that spans Chinese antiquities to Western masterpieces. His New York presence reflects a sophisticated understanding that the world's great cities offer not just financial returns, but access to the cultural institutions where history's most important objects change hands. He represents a new kind of Chinese collector, one who moves fluidly between the auction houses of Manhattan and the galleries of Shanghai, building a legacy that transcends national boundaries. The patience and cultural fluency that define Liu Yiqian's approach to collecting find their ultimate expression in our number 8 entry, a man who helped create the very infrastructure of the internet age. Jerry Yang arrived in San Jose, California in 1978, a 10-year-old boy from Taipei who knew only one word of English. That word was shoe. Within 3 years, he was fluent. Within 2 decades, he would be a billionaire. Born Yangqi Yuan in Taiwan, he lost his father at the age of 2 and was raised by his mother, a professor of English and drama who eventually moved the family to America in search of greater opportunity. At Stanford University, Yang earned both his bachelor's and master's degrees in electrical engineering in just 4 years. It was there, in 1994, that he and fellow student David Philo created a website they called Jerry and David's Guide to the World Wide Web. As it grew in popularity, they renamed it Yahoo, and by the fall of that year, it was attracting 100,000 unique visitors. The following April, Sequoia Capital invested $2 million, and Jerry Yang's transformation from immigrant student to technology pioneer was complete. But Jerry Yang's greatest contribution to the relationship between American technology and Chinese enterprise came not from Yahoo itself, but from a chance encounter on the other side of the world. In 1997, Yang traveled to China for the first time and found himself at the Great Wall with an unusual tour guide. Jack Ma was a former English teacher who had recently discovered the internet and was showing visitors around to practice his language skills. The two men talked for hours about the future of technology, and Ma founded Alibaba just months later. That conversation at the Great Wall would ultimately generate one of the most lucrative investments in corporate history. In 2005, under Yang's direction, Yahoo purchased a 40% stake in Alibaba for $1 billion, plus the assets of Yahoo China, valued at $700 million. When Yahoo sold a portion of that stake in 2012, the return was $7.6 billion. The company earned an additional $9.4 billion from Alibaba's 2014 initial public offering. Eric Jackson, founder of hedge fund Ironfire Capital, called it the best investment an American company has ever made in China, and he credited Jerry Yang with enormous foresight for recognizing what Alibaba could become. Today, Jerry Yang's net worth stands at approximately $3.1 billion according to Forbes. He left Yahoo in 2012 and founded AME Cloud Ventures, a firm that has provided funding to more than 50 startups, including Evernote, Wattpad, and notably Zoom. But his impact extends far beyond venture capital. In 2021, Yang joined fellow billionaires Li Lu and Joseph Tsai to co-found the Asian American Foundation with $125 million in initial commitments. The organization was created to combat anti-Asian hate crimes and promote education within Asian American and Pacific Islander communities, representing a new chapter in Yang's legacy as he channels his fortune towards strengthening the very communities that produced him. Jerry Yang's journey from a boy who knew only the word shoe to a billionaire who helped define the internet age embodies the transformative power of immigrant ambition. But if Yang represents the creation of digital infrastructure, our number 7 entry has devoted his life to something equally foundational: the preservation and enrichment of the cultural institutions that define what it means to be American. Oscar Tang was born in Shanghai in 1938, the son of Tang Ping Yuan, a man who would become known as Hong Kong's textile tycoon. His father had received a Boxer Indemnity Scholarship to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and became one of the early civic and business leaders of post-1949 Hong Kong. When the Communist Revolution swept across China in 1949, the Tang family fled, and young Oscar was sent to the United States at the age of 11 to attend Phillips Academy, Andover. He would later study at both Harvard and Yale, following in his father's footsteps as a beneficiary of American educational excellence. After graduating, Tang co-founded Reich & Tang, an asset management firm where he served as president and CEO for over 20 years. In 1987, the company became the first publicly traded investment management limited partnership on the New York Stock Exchange, and it eventually grew to manage over $130 billion in client assets before being acquired in 2000. But Tang's most unconventional investment came in 1980 when he purchased Campgrounds of America during the energy crisis that had battered travel-related companies. What he called a very attractively priced asset would prove remarkably prescient. KOA is now the largest system of private campgrounds in the United States, spanning more than 2,000 acres of properties. When the COVID-19 pandemic sent Americans seeking outdoor recreation in record numbers, KOA's revenue surged 46% in 2021 alone. According to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, Oscar Tang's net worth reached $1.6 billion in 2022, the first time he appeared on the global wealth rankings. But what truly distinguishes Tang is not the accumulation of wealth, but its deployment. In 2021, he and his wife, Agnes Xu Tang, a Cambridge and Stanford-educated archaeologist, donated $125 million to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It was the largest capital gift in the museum's 151-year history, and the newly renovated modern and contemporary art wing will bear their names. They have given $40 million to the New York Philharmonic, the largest endowment gift in the orchestra's history, and $20 million to the New York Historical Society for its Wing for American Democracy. In total, the Tangs have contributed over $190 million to cultural institutions, reshaping the landscape of New York philanthropy. Oscar Tang serves as co-chairman of the New York Philharmonic and was elected a Fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in 2005. In 1990, President George H.W. Bush appointed him to the President's Committee on the Arts and Humanities. And in 1989, after the Tiananmen Square massacre, Tang joined I.M. Pei and Yo-Yo Ma to co-found the Committee of 100, an organization dedicated to encouraging understanding between the United States and China. Oscar Tang's transformation of American cultural institutions through Chinese-American philanthropy represents one pathway to lasting influence. But our number 6 entry chose an entirely different route to reshape American life. While Tang was enriching museums and concert halls, Silas Cho was quietly revolutionizing what America wears. Born in Hong Kong in 1946 to a family that had built one of Asia's largest knitwear manufacturing empires, Silas Cho understood textiles from childhood. His father, Chow Kwang Piu, had founded South Ocean Knitters, and by 1978, Silas had co-founded Shangzhou Woolen Mills in China's Zhuhai Special Economic Zone. He built an operation spanning textile mills, denim plants, and design factories across China, Vietnam, and South Asia. Industry observers noted that his resources for overseas investment were 5 to 10 times larger than those of typical American counterparts. But Cho's genius lay not in manufacturing alone. It lay in recognizing which struggling American brands could be transformed into global phenomena. In 1989, Cho and Canadian partner Lawrence Stroll co-founded Sportswear Holdings and immediately acquired a 70% stake in a faltering fashion label called Tommy Hilfiger. What happened next would redefine American fashion. Under Cho's leadership as chairman and largest shareholder, Tommy Hilfiger underwent a remarkable transformation. Sales climbed from $25 million in 1992 to $70 million in 1993 and over $100 million by 1994. By the end of the decade, the brand's annual revenue had surpassed $1 billion, making it one of the most successful fashion stories in American history. Chu and Stroll took the company public in 1992, and by 1996, a leadership group that had invested just $206,000 walked away with a combined $325 million. That represents a return of more than 157,000%. In 2006, They sold Tommy Hilfiger to British private equity firm Apex Partners for $1.6 billion. But Silas Cho was far from finished. In 2003, he and Stroll acquired a majority stake in another struggling designer label for $100 million. The brand was Michael Kors, and they would apply the same formula of capital infusion, operational expertise, and global expansion that had worked so spectacularly with Hilfiger. When Michael Kors went public in December 2011, the company had a valuation of $3.8 billion. Share values quadrupled over the following years, and by 2014, the company was generating $3.5 billion in revenue, $1 billion in profit, and commanding a market capitalization of $20 billion. At that peak, Cho and Stroll each held stakes worth approximately $5 billion. The empire continued to expand. In 2017, Michael Kors Holdings acquired Jimmy Choo for nearly $1 billion. The following year, they purchased Versace for $2.1 billion, and the company was renamed Capri Holdings. Silas Cho also invested in Karl Lagerfeld and Pepe Jeans, building a portfolio that touched nearly every segment of the global fashion market. His daughter Veronica now runs Iconics China Group, distributing brands like Bagley Mishka and Ed Hardy, while daughter Vivian heads Bright Fame Fashion, which acquired a controlling stake in designer Tycoon in 2015. In New York, Cho's presence extends beyond fashion boardrooms. In 2013, he purchased a penthouse on the Upper East Side of Manhattan for $33 million, making it one of the most expensive apartment sales in the city that year. A decade earlier, in 2002, he had signed a lease with Donald Trump for the first 3 floors at the corner of Trump Tower, opening Asprey and Garrard's New York flagship store in 2003. He serves as a trustee of the New York University School of Medicine and maintains properties in London, Hong Kong, and other global capitals. Forbes has estimated his net worth at approximately $2.7 billion, though some sources place the figure closer to $3 billion. Silas Cho's story reveals that the path to extraordinary wealth need not require inventing new technologies or discovering untapped resources. Sometimes it requires simply seeing potential where others see failure and having the patience and capital to nurture that potential into global success. That same capacity for recognizing hidden value defines our number 5 entry, a man who solved one of humanity's most fundamental desires and built a fortune by making distance disappear. Eric Yuan was born on February 20th, 1970 in Tai'an, a city in China's Shandong province. His parents were geological engineers, and his childhood was modest. In 4th grade, he collected construction scraps to recycle copper for pocket money. But it was during his university years that Yuan experienced the frustration that would ultimately make him a billionaire. His girlfriend lived far away, and visiting her required 10-hour train rides. Sitting in those crowded carriages, Yuan began to dream of a technology that would let him see her face without traveling at all. Yuan earned his bachelor's degree in applied mathematics from Shandong University of Science and Technology and his master's in geological engineering from China University of Mining and Technology, where he met and married his wife, Sherry, at the age of 22. In 1994, he attended a speech by Bill Gates and became convinced that his future lay in the United States. He applied for a visa. He was rejected. He applied again and was rejected again. Over 2 years, American immigration authorities rejected Eric Yuan 8 times. On the 9th attempt, he finally received approval. In 1997, Yuan arrived in California and joined WebEx as one of its first 20 employees. He rose through the ranks to become vice president of engineering. When Cisco acquired WebEx for $3.2 billion in 2007, Yuan continued in that role. But he had a vision for a new kind of video conferencing system, one designed for smartphones and focused relentlessly on user experience. In 2011, he pitched the idea to Cisco's leadership. They rejected it, so Eric Yuan left to build it himself. The early years were difficult. Investors saw a crowded market and passed. Yuan struggled to raise capital and relied on friends and family to fund development. Zoom launched its beta version in September 2012, and Stanford University became its first customer. By January 2013, Yuan had raised $6 million in Series A funding. Growth came steadily, but not spectacularly, until January 2017, when Sequoia Capital invested $100 million, valuing Zoom at $1 billion. The company had achieved unicorn status. On April 18, 2019, Zoom went public on the NASDAQ. Shares finished the first day up 72%, giving the company a market capitalization of $16 billion. Unlike many technology IPOs of that era, Zoom was both debt-free and profitable. Eric Yuan's 19% stake was worth $3 billion. But what happened next would transform him from successful entrepreneur to global phenomenon. When COVID-19 forced the world into lockdown in early 2020, Zoom became essential infrastructure almost overnight. Schools, businesses, governments, and families turned to Yuan's platform to maintain connection across enforced distance. By September 2020, Zoom's market capitalization had soared past $130 billion. Eric Yuan's net worth peaked above $25 billion, and Time magazine named him Business Person of the Year. Today, Yuan's fortune has settled to approximately $5 billion as post-pandemic life has resumed. But his impact endures in every virtual meeting, every remote classroom, every family gathering conducted across thousands of miles. The boy who dreamed of seeing his girlfriend's face without a 10-hour train ride gave that gift to the entire world. Eric Yuan's persistence through 8 visa rejections reveals something essential about the character required to build extraordinary wealth. But our number 4 entry faced obstacles that make visa applications seem trivial. Li Lu survived one of the deadliest earthquakes in recorded history, grew up in orphanages after his parents were sent to labor camps, fled his homeland as a wanted man, and arrived in New York City at 23 years old with no money and limited English. Today, he manages over $14 billion and is known as the Chinese Warren Buffett. Li Lu was born in April 1966 in Tangshan, China. Just 10 years later, that city was devastated by an earthquake that killed more than 240,000 people. Li Lu survived. His parents, targeted during Mao's Cultural Revolution, had already been sent to labor camps, and young Li Lu moved between orphanages and caretakers throughout his childhood. He found his way to Nanjing University, where he studied physics before transferring to economics. In 1989, he participated in the Tiananmen Square student protests and emerged as one of the movement's leaders. When the government crackdown came, Li Lu fled China, first to France and then to the United States. He arrived in New York City with virtually nothing and enrolled at Columbia University. Working through cultural and financial barriers that would have defeated most people, Li Lu did something remarkable. He earned 3 degrees simultaneously by 1996, a bachelor's in economics, a law degree, and an MBA. While still a student, he used his student loans as seed capital for stock market investments and made his first $1 million before graduating. In 1997, 1 year after finishing his studies, he founded Himalaya Capital Management. The early years were brutal. The 1997 Asian financial crisis caused a 19% loss in his first year, triggering major investor withdrawals. Li Lu experimented with day trading and short selling, strategies that carried unlimited downside risk. Recovery came slowly through careful investments in undervalued Japanese and Korean stocks, but the true transformation of both his fund and his philosophy came on Thanksgiving Day 2003, when Li Lu met Charlie Munger, the legendary vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway and Warren Buffett's partner of 5 decades. Munger became an investor in Himalaya Capital, a mentor, and by Li Lu's own description, a good friend. Their relationship would last until Munger's death in 2023. Munger stated publicly that Li Lu was the only outside manager he had ever invested with, and he entrusted a substantial portion of his personal fortune to Li Lu's stewardship. Most significantly, it was Li Lu who introduced Munger and Buffett to BYD, the Chinese battery and electric vehicle manufacturer. Himalaya Capital's partnership owns approximately 2.5% of BYD, an investment that has returned close to 20 billion Hong Kong dollars, with gains exceeding 38 times the original stake. As of 2023, Himalaya Capital manages approximately $14 billion in assets with a compound annual return of 30% since its 1998 inception. Li Lu served as a trustee of Columbia University from 2017 to 2024 and currently sits on the board of the California Institute of Technology. In 2021, he joined Jerry Yang and Joseph Tsai to co-found the Asian American Foundation with $125 million to serve the 23 million Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in this country. He was elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in 2020. From earthquake survivor to orphan to fugitive to billionaire, Li Lu's journey represents perhaps the most extraordinary transformation in modern finance. But if Li Lu exemplifies intellectual brilliance applied to capital allocation, our number 3 entry proves that world-changing fortunes can be built on products most people never think about. John 2 and David Sun are each worth approximately $17 billion according to recent Bloomberg estimates, making them among the wealthiest individuals of Chinese descent anywhere in the world. Their company, Kingston Technology, is the largest independent manufacturer of computer memory products on Earth, and their story begins with total financial devastation. John Tu was born in Chongqing, China in 1941, the son of an official in the nationalist government. His family fled to Taiwan as the communists advanced. Tu eventually made his way to Germany, earned an engineering degree, and immigrated to the United States in 1970. David Sun was born in Taiwan in 1951, studied electrical engineering, and arrived in America in 1977. The two men met in Los Angeles and bonded over a shared love of basketball. In 1982, they co-founded a memory device company called Cammonton and sold it 4 years later for $6 million. Then came October 1987. The Black Monday stock market crash wiped out virtually everything they had saved. Starting over from near zero, Tu and Sun founded Kingston Technology that same year, naming it after the Kingston Trio, one of Tu's favorite bands. They had identified a shortage of memory chips and created an innovative solution. The company grew to become a global leader in flash drives, solid-state drives, and memory modules. In fiscal year 2024, Kingston generated $14 billion in revenue and ranked 29th on Forbes' list of America's largest private companies. In 1996, Tu and Sun sold 80% of Kingston to Japan's SoftBank for $1.5 billion. What they did next became legendary. They distributed $100 million of the proceeds to their 550 employees, with average bonuses reaching well over $100,000 per person. 3 years later, when demand softened and SoftBank's interest waned, Tu and Sun bought their company back for just $450 million. Today, both men still work from cubicles on the sales floor, leading a company that has made them billionaires many times over while treating their employees like family. And now we arrive at number 1. If every story on this list has demonstrated a different path to extraordinary wealth, Zhang and Pan Shiyi have written the definitive playbook for building, protecting, and relocating a fortune across continents. From Zhang world-spanning journey from Hong Kong factory floors to Manhattan's most prestigious addresses, to Li Lu's extraordinary transformation from Tiananmen Square refugee to Charlie Munger's chosen successor, these stories paint a vivid and inspiring portrait of 21st century wealth creation. What are the common threads that bind these remarkable journeys? We see a foundation in elite education. Cambridge, Stanford, Columbia, Harvard, the best institutions in both the East and the West. We see a sharp strategic focus on the sectors that define our modern economy: technology, finance, real estate, fashion, and most importantly, we see a powerful, unrelenting, self-made spirit that refuses to accept limitations. These are not tales of inherited wealth or political connections. These are stories of pure determination, of seeing opportunity where others saw only risk, of building something monumental from circumstances that would have defeated lesser individuals. Consider that Zhang lived in a room barely large enough for 2 bunk beds, that Li Lu survived one of history's deadliest earthquakes and grew up in orphanages, that Eric Yuan had his visa rejected 8 times before finally reaching American shores. These families did not merely overcome obstacles, they transformed those obstacles into the very foundations of their success. In New York City, they have found not just a place to park their wealth, but a stage on which to demonstrate what is possible when ambition meets opportunity. The Tang Wing at the Metropolitan Museum, the billions flowing through family offices in Midtown Manhattan, the stakes in buildings that define the New York skyline. These are not simply investments, they are statements of permanence, declarations that these families intend to shape the American landscape for generations to come. Their journeys offer a profound lesson for anyone seeking to understand the new architecture of global wealth. Success in the 21st century requires more than capital. It requires cultural fluency, the ability to navigate between worlds, to see connections invisible to those trapped within a single perspective. These families have mastered that art, and in doing so, they have rewritten the rules of wealth creation itself. Which of these incredible stories inspires you the most? Is it the patient value investing of Li Lu or the bold fashion bets of Silas Cho? Is it Zhang blueprint for protecting a fortune or Eric Yuan's persistence in the face of rejection? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the lives of these innovators and empire builders, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories about the people and ideas that are shaping our world. Thanks for watching.